All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Club. This is the Token Wednesday episode that we do, bringing that Wednesday energy to you guys. I hope you're having a great week. It is a good day for another reason because we have Donato Callahan with us on the podcast. Donato has over 400 units under management. He started recently and he has a lot of experience. He's also started a prop tech company called Bright Investor that helps you analyze properties, analyze metros, all the things that we need during due diligence. So, Donato, I am excited to jump into this. Thanks for hopping on the podcast.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I told you before we get on here, we always like starting with stories and hearing how people got to where they are. It sounds like you've done a lot in your life up to this point, and so you got a good story to jump into. Why don't you take us back to the beginning of your story and tell us how'd you get into real estate?
Yeah, so it was never the plan. I can start with that. It was me going to college out of Boise State, and I was going for biology under the mindset of good grades, good school, good job, and put a nice stamp on life. Pretty quickly though, I got to school and realized I don't want to pay for this thing. How can I not do that? And ended up getting a scholarship to the Department of Defense, where they ended up paying for my school. In exchange, I had to come work for them as an analyst in the intelligence community once I graduated. So having won that my freshman year, I knew where I was going to work. I'd taken care of the finances the way I needed to, and so I had some time, and I was always been more of a saver. I started saving money until pretty much January 2020, when my folks were saying, we did the stock market thing. You got to put the money in the stock market, go and do something with it. So I said, okay. So I put it in about, maybe 20, 25,000 right around then. Saw it go up to 30 and 35,000. I thought, man, I'm a genius. And then COVID hit. I lost half of it overnight. I'm like,
Oh,
man, I'm an idiot.
we've
It was a
all lost
terrible
money in the
decision.
stock market, that's for sure. But it's
Yep.
good. It's
I'm
a
like,
good lesson that you got to stick to your lane. I did the same
yep,
thing. I did it in crypto, just like made a bunch of money, but then lost a shit ton of money. And I'm like,
yep.
okay, now I know don't invest in things I don't understand.
Exactly. So I'm like, okay, cool. So how do I get something that I can have more control over? And that ended up being real estate. So I started a wholesaling company as a senior in college, got a job at a property management company to learn the ins and outs of the business. Started working with investors both in state and out of state until my end of my senior year when I realized, buying and selling a property is cool, but I want to buy something and hold it and get paid multiple times for just having that asset. So that transitioned me to more buy and hold strategy. And then the thought process came along. If I can do that with one unit, why not 100 units? Which kind of propelled me into the multifamily space. And that's pretty much how I got my start into the residential and commercial multifamily space, which led to me closing my first four family on my 22nd birthday here in St. Louis. And then that turned into a 172 unit deal in Waco, Texas. And then my most recent acquisition about a month and a half ago, a 200 unit in San Antonio, Texas. And I'm putting out offers every day.
Love it, man. So how did you actually decide upon real estate? Sounds like you had a little bit of success in the stock market, but then you got punched in the teeth. At what point were you like, you know what, real estate is what I should do? Like what kind of led you to that path?
Yeah, so what led me here was looking online, understanding what have been the traditional tried and true methods of
Mhm.
creating wealth for yourself that is dependent on your efforts more importantly than anyone else's. And you're more in control of it. And so the things that came out were real estate and business. Like, great. Well, real estate is a very tried and true method of these different strategies with these calculations, this math works.
Yeah.
So that seemed very repeatable to me as someone who's just getting started in this space. So that attracted me towards real estate, the first part, especially the thought process that I could buy something. And, there's a lot of institutions, whether it be from the lending side, the capital side, the debt side, that are in place to help me do this so I can leverage other people's time, money, and resources to be able to create something for myself. And not a lot of other things are set up that way where there's all this history behind creating a system to allow you to do that.
Yeah. So when you first got in, you're actually in wholesaling, and that
Yep.
is like, we've done wholesaling, trying to stand up a business just doing wholesaling and not usually investors will wholesale as a part of their process of finding deals, and they're looking for a deal to buy. They get a deal that doesn't quite fit their criteria, so they wholesale it, but they don't really stand up a full business around wholesaling, usually because it's hard and it sucks
Yeah.
sometimes. So how was the first business in wholesaling? How did it go? What were you doing? That did you find success there, or were you getting kicked in the teeth so much that you're like, all right, screw this, we're going to buy and holds?
I mean, I think you always get kicked in the teeth, regardless if you get successful or not. But
That's true.
I knowing what I know now, I could have been more successful with it had I known what I was doing.
Yeah,
But I was doing calling, I was doing texting, I was doing direct mail. I got properties that came my way. If I had known what I was doing, I definitely would have gotten a few more of the contract. But I did get some properties under contract. I even got some assigned, assignment fees coming in. But it was a recognition of what the industry required of me personally and what the end goal of the wholesaling business was, which was okay, you gotta do another wholesale, like sell it, get the assignment fee, great. Okay, you got to find the next one or use it to fund something else. And I thought,
yeah,
well, why don't I just go find a way to buy the stuff that I actually want now without having to have my own money and do that through either bank debt or syndication methods.
yeah, yeah. I used to whenever someone asked me what is the best way to get into real estate without any money, I used to always tell them wholesaling, and now I never tell them wholesaling because I know it's not easy, and it takes, if you don't have money and you can't stand up a team, it takes a lot of time, and that time could be better spent networking with other people, figuring out how to do a syndication and just take an acquisition fee. And so I generally now only suggest wholesaling as a part of a overarching strategy of off market, generating leads off market. But it's a great way to learn the business because it's tough, and if you can make it through that, then you're going to find success elsewhere, which you did in the multifamily space. You got that fourplex, pretty standard. Let's talk about that first 172 unit down there in Waco. That's a big jump from 4 to 172. Walk us through that deal. How'd you find it? This had, at this point, this was all new to you. Standing up a
Yeah.
syndication, getting investors. Um, Take us through that process step by step. What'd you do? How'd you learn it? How did it go?
Yeah, so it was the second semester of my senior year of college that I was about to close my fourplex and I had started looking into syndications. And while I was still in school, I found this building in St. Louis that I wanted to offer on. I found some teammates,
So how'd you
underwrote
find
the
it?
deal. Yeah, that came on, I think it was a LoopNet deal, or
Oh
maybe like
wow,
a
a
couple broker
LoopNet
email
deal.
lists.
That's great.
LoopNet or a broker email list that is our way. Like a 96 unit deal of like 3.5 million. And like, okay, this deal seems interesting. I'm kind of curious about it. Got some teammates who were in the industry, like they worked that their W-2, and said, "Hey, let's partner on this deal together." So we wrote up an offer, sent it over to them, got the offer accepted, and then I graduated college and I road tripped like 3 days back to Iowa. Got home at like 11 o'clock at night, go to sleep, up at 4 in the morning in the car driving to St. Louis to go meet the contractors I'd hired for our on-site inspection. So down there, inspect it. It's in way worse condition than we thought. And we tell them, hey, we can still transact, but it can't be at this price. It has to be here. Um, they said nope, go kick sand. I'm like, all right, whatever. So
Good luck.
I lost, yeah, I lost the deal. I lost a couple of grand, the money I spent on the contractors, but I learned. And it was because of that lesson that a couple months later, a friend of mine reached out and said, hey, I'm joining this mentorship group for multifamily syndication. I know you've tried this and have some experience. Why don't you do it with me? It's
You
like,
want
great.
to give that group a shout out?
Yeah, that was Tyler Devereux's multifamily mindset.
Cool.
Went through that group. And so joined the group, put together a 6 person team and just started looking at deals and talking to sponsors and basically crash course and how this functions and pretty much going to the people who knew what they were doing and saying, what do you need to have done? What do you hate doing in your process? And then they tell us, it's okay, great. We'll go do that. And we did that 96 times in 3 months. So
Oh
we found a
wow.
deal that worked. Yeah.
Okay.
And then said,
So
hey,
by
we
saying
listened.
96 times, you're saying you basically vetted 96 deals and made the offer on them until you found one that worked, and then you brought that deal to these the sponsors.
I wish we got that far with all of them. 96 times going through the uh, acquisition process, underwriting the deal, understanding it, seeing if it meets criteria, and then maybe going to the sponsor saying, hey, I think this meets your criteria.
Got it.
Only about maybe 15 of them made it to being able to talk to people and say, hey, I think this meets your buy box. Let's do it together. And it was after doing that enough times that the people we were going to partner with said, okay, you guys are clearly not going away. Let's take a look at this.
We're doing a deal,
And
damn it.
yeah, and so that's what ended up happening. They're like, you know what, this one makes sense. I like it. Let's work together. And then it was 6 months later that we closed on that one, and it became our first 172.
Nice, man. I love that. I think that is a great way, especially for anybody out there if you're listening and you haven't done a large commercial deal yet. Maybe you're doing single family, you're doing some flips, you're doing some wholesales. You want to get into commercial. I think this is a great way to do it. First, you joined a mastermind. I love that because learning from people who are actually doing deals is so much better than learning from people on YouTube or on whatever, on podcasts. No offense to the podcast we're on right now, but actually listening to people doing deals and talking with them makes such a big difference. And so you did that. You figured out the part that they didn't like, which was going out there, finding deals,
Yep.
running the numbers, all that jazz, bringing it to them consistently until you brought something to them that they were like, shit, this works. Let's do it. And then you got yourself into a deal, and you did that without having to spend, you know, tens of thousands of dollars on off market lead gen. It sounds like you were reaching out to brokers. And so
Yep.
there wasn't a lot of cost except for your time in this process. So
And
I
that
think
was the
that's,
most, yeah, that was the biggest thing I was looking for. Because, the time I just graduated college, I just turned 22,
yeah.
right? I knew like I was just starting my job as a geospatial analyst at the Department of Defense. So end of 2021, all 2022 and 2023 sucked because it was day job for 8 to 9 hours a day, 6 a.m. to like maybe 3 or 4. Come home, have 30 mixed calls, 70 mixed test messages, trying to do multifamily acquisition at the same time while also building my software company, Bright Investor, which we started building because of the thing we talked about with the sponsors. And they said, hey, I hate this process of market research and finding deals. I'm like, great, let me go build a software company that does that.
Mm,
So that was like my little plug there. So I was doing all those things at the same time. But largely, there was just an effort component. If I
yeah.
put in time and effort consistently, which is what I had to give, especially as a younger person, then that was made sense for me. It wasn't a capital intensive operation. So as long as I can fill that role and be willing to work harder and give more of myself and sacrifice for that, I didn't have to spend the money,
Yeah.
which was what I needed to be able to do. And so
Yeah.
that's what we did.
Nice, man. Yeah, I want to talk about Bright Investor. Before we do that, let's just tie up this deal. So you found it, you brought it to the investors. They said, okay, it sounds great. Let's do it. Did they brought the capital to the deal? They found the debt,
Correct.
all that stuff. And so your role in this process was the acquisitions, was finding the deal, underwriting it.
Correct. So
Awesome.
that's what I do now full time. So since I think this last September 2023, I've been able to since retire from my day job as an analyst, and I'm in real estate full time. And so, for example, the first couple months of 2024, I looked at over 1,100 multifamily deals,
Oh
and
wow.
my job is working with brokers, getting them sent to me, analyze the deal, underwrite it, do the market research, get all the quotes in, and then go and write an offer, and then to come to the capital team and the asset management team and say, hey, here's what I want to do. And that's what I do now. And so, yes, that acquisition process is what I specialize in.
There you go. And another thing that I feel like needs to be called out there is you found your lane and you stuck with it. Some people have a lot of money, that's their lane. Some people are really good at running the deal, quoting out bids, getting the scope of work done, following up with the contractors. Some people are good at managing, managing the property manager, doing asset management. Some people are great at finding deals. And so if you find your lane, you get a team together. That is how you get big deals done. You just got to figure out what needs to be done and what you're good at, and just pigeonhole yourself in that lane. Go find people that
Exactly.
do the other roles, and you got yourself a team, and you got yourself some big 172 unit deals. Love it. Right on. So let's talk about Bright Investor. It sounds, it is a portion of the total transaction process, the underwriting and figuring out, especially for the market data, that can be kind of
Yeah.
laborious and tiresome. So it's definitely needed. So tell us about the software, what it does, and how it helps investors.
Yeah. So it really started as a problem that I was having, which is maybe I have a deal, but, market that I'm living in, what I'm interested in, it's really hard to find good deals, or I don't know much about the area, or it's too expensive, and I need to know about what's going to happen there so I can reduce my risk. And I was going to dozens of websites across the internet. I was spending like 6 or 7 hours on my computer on one deal, trying to understand, is this going to be a good investment over the next couple of years? Is this a safe area to be in? And I really hated that much time being spent on the process. So became a question of, can we build something that does it for me? Like the answer is yes. And so with Bright Investor, we created something where now if I want to look at new markets and maybe I'm looking to find emerging markets that are going to get hot, I can just go to our find market tool and ask it to find me the best markets in Texas for population growth. Or I can find the best markets in Ohio for, appreciation. I can quickly zero in on which markets I'm interested in, and then once I have a couple I want to go take a look at, I can look at things like crime stats on the ground, like street by street. Not even like an A to F level, but even more so to say, I know that a violent assault happened at this address, at this block on this day.
Yeah.
I can get my rent comps, right there. I can get my appreciation rates right there. I can do my build permit progress to even track what other investors are doing nearby to see where they're doing renovation projects. So I know if I have a flip to do or wholesale to do, I got people who are doing projects right here. I can easily sell to them, and my property's value is going to go up because of all that force appreciation they're doing. And when
Nice.
you wrap all that together, the next step is, well, okay, maybe I have a great area that I want to invest in. I know this is where I want to be. So then Bright Investor will help you find the on-market and off-market deals, run comps on it, skip trace the owner to get their phone number and email address right there, analyze the deal for you, and then go see rent comps a specific deal while putting it all together in a one-page report that you can go use to raise money for it from a private money lender, disposition the deal if you're going to flip it or wholesale to someone, or if you're a real estate agent as well, use it to inform your clients on why this makes sense for them or why it doesn't.
Nice, man. I love it. Yeah, I was just pulling it up here on the side. It looks like a pretty good program. And it's funny you mentioned the crime data. That's something that, in our due diligence process, what we do to kind of understand crime is, I think it's a neighborhood scout is one thing. It's, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people use it, but it's really not granular. It's just general
Mm-hmm.
data. And so we would call the police station and
Yep.
understand and ask, how many calls they get, and then call property managers. This is not something that I had in my process prior to this one deal I bought in Hot Springs, Arkansas. It was a self storage facility, and we just kept getting hammered by people breaking into the facility. It was like the most, pull your hair out kind of deal. But if I had had this platform here, I'm sure if I look it up on this platform, it'll say there's a lot of property crime on this area. So I understand the need. It's definitely useful for anybody out there who wants to invest in properties, because, man, you really need to know granular data, like location
Mm-hmm.
based data for deals, because a city might be great, like Seattle. We're killing it. Seattle's doing great, but there are certain areas in Seattle that you just don't want to buy. Sure, if you got it for zero money, it would make sense, but you generally don't want to buy it
Exactly.
because there's so much property crime.
Actually, we just did a webinar pretty recently breaking down the Seattle market. I can send you the link. You can put in the show description. Breaking down Seattle using the platforms. You go into
Oh
things
yeah.
like, "Hey, here's a street. You see all this crime on this street," and it was great to get a lot of Seattle citizens who were in there like, "Yep, I know that street. That's the one street we all avoid."
First
It's like,
Ave, get out of there.
yeah. And it's like great, like I'm, 1,000 miles away, but I can invest like a local because I know which areas to avoid on a very, very granular street by street level. So it makes the whole process way, way safer, way faster. And then when you go to look at your deals, right, you're like, okay, great. I don't need to call or mail or text 1,000 different leads. I know I only want this small section based off the location around it. I'm going to whittle that down to a couple hundred and then turn on my list stacking. And all of a sudden, I'm just targeting the 10 to 20 to 30 to 40 people that I really, really know these properties are going to do well.
Nice. I'm curious what areas in Seattle came out on top. Do you remember?
Oh man, I remember we were looking at some spots in central Seattle and northeast Seattle, if I'm not mistaken, looking at all the different construction going on because we were able to tell using Bright Investor the dominant strategy of ADUs. We were able to
Oh
see
yeah,
track a
yeah,
lot of
that's
that going
that's
on.
big. Yeah,
Yeah, it was
people are
really
making
cool.
crazy money with ADUs. A buddy of mine, well, he does only ADUs in Seattle, but they're making like $1 million on. They're adding 1 million, not quite 1 million, but almost $1 million on a ADU renovation to a property just because they're adding another unit. It's nuts.
Wow, that's
Um,
crazy. that's what we were seeing. It's just like we were able to track, okay, what types of properties are being built here? Okay, how big are they? Okay. And then we was really cool because we said, look at this. The home prices are going up. The price per square foot is like going down. And we were able to showcase how all the different, all the numbers come together to say the only reasonable, conclusion is that they're building ADUs in this areas and track it all. So really, really cool. You can break down with the information based on having it all together just in one place.
Very cool. Right on. Well, we'll talk about more about how to get in contact at the end of that of the section here, but it is time to jump into the quick question round. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Starts with education. Could be any form. Could be movies, books, YouTube shows, whatever. I just need two recommendations. Give me one for general life wisdom, and then one for real estate.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed, honestly, The Politics of Rich and Poor. It's a great book, and it talks about how America's economy has shifted and changed over almost like last 200 years. And
Mm,
so to understand exactly why our country operates the way it does, how money works, how it circulates, and how business has affected us over time, it was a great read to really understand how did we get here today and what can we expect in the future.
hmm.
So for general knowledge. And then for real
Yeah.
estate, I'd really recommend Who Not How and Traction. I always recommend those ones.
Oh yeah.
They're just great, great books that really changed my approach to how I do real estate and life in general.
Yeah. Yeah. Who not how is a great one. Politics of rich and poor. That sounds interesting.
I
Wealth.
recommend it.
Yeah. Yeah. The subtitle there is Wealth in the American Electorate in the Reagan Aftermath. That'd be an interesting read. All right, next question is for your younger self. Let's go back to the Donato who was just looking at that first fourplex, or how about the guy who is just starting his first wholesale deal? Go back to him, look him in the eye, give him one piece of advice moving forward.
Oh man, going back to 20-year-old Donato, one piece of advice I'd give him: talk to 10 people who've been doing what you want to do for 10 years before you start. Because when you start, you'll then have 100 years of wisdom right out the gate. And then also add on to that, are they happy with where they are? And if not, what's missing?
Mm,
Because success leaves clues, but so does failure. And so if you can just map that out before you go and say, okay, these people, they make this much, their lifestyle looks like this, their satisfaction is this, you can really easily pick out the points that you like and the ones you don't, and then build your life around what it is you actually want.
I love it. All right. Next question is about the U.S. This is a good one for you because you guys have that bright investor. It's a big place. There is a ton of opportunity, a ton of good markets. So, what is your number one market to be investing in today?
Oh gosh, it's like a favorite child question. Um, Markets that I am pretty bullish on include. Can I give two? You okay if I give you two
Fine.
markets? Okay.
Yep.
I'm pretty fond of Des Moines, Iowa, and Columbus, Ohio. I really like those two.
Interesting. You're
Yeah.
my partner is from a partner of mine is from Des Moines, and he'd be jumping in a seat right now for you saying that. Why Des Moines? You're the first person on the podcast. I asked this to everybody. Your episode like number 480 something. Nobody's mentioned Des Moines. So why do you say Des Moines?
So I look at areas like Des Moines and I understand when it comes to the economy that we're situating in and how the Midwest sits when it comes to affordability, housing index, inflation, and overall cost of living. And when I look at other Midwestern markets, such as Columbus or Kansas City, which have been growing fantastically in the last couple of years and are projected to keep growing, areas like Des Moines, major metropolitan area in Iowa, and is continuing to see population growth and appreciation at a rate that I think is going to be able to bring a lot of value to investors over the next 15 years. And I think in about 10 years from now, it will be what Columbus is right about now, what
Hmm.
Kansas City was about 5 to 10 years ago.
Is
All that to
that
put
so?
together.
Columbus is really due to they kind of had a tech boom, but that's not happening in Des Moines. Is there some kind of underlying economic thing that fueling the growth in population, or why? What do you see in Des Moines?
Yeah, so with Columbus, there's a tech boom as well, but the manufacturing plants and other
Mm,
major employers are coming in, deploying thousands of jobs. And when it comes to Des Moines, I'm thinking that what I'm seeing in the area concludes the fact that there is more employers who are coming in, not necessarily at the same rate that Columbus is seeing right now for both manufacturing and the tech side, But the major university component there, the major hospital system there, I do two huge employers that I look for in the areas that I want to invest in long term: education and healthcare. They're seeing massive growth when it comes to their employment numbers. And when it comes to Des Moines itself, the cost of land in that area compared to other areas across the US when it comes to expanding manufacturing facilities and other plants is lower overall. So I really
That's
like
because
this
that's
long
all
term.
they got out there is land.
It's I know absolutely. It's a great spot. So I'm bullish on the area because I think over time, when we look at how minimum wages are projected to go up in certain states, we look at which areas are seeing, median home prices maybe 40% underneath the national median. Any markets that have, especially capital markets or capital city markets in states that have positive population appreciation potential with major education healthcare systems at the same time having cheaper than national median housing in the area, I think is situated for a very successful next decade or two, especially when it's in a lower cost of living market that we know coastal and even Sunbelt investors are flocking to right now because the areas that were great, like Phoenix or maybe Austin, et cetera, have seen a lot of capital flow in, and the dirt cheap deals just aren't as common anymore.
Yeah, makes sense. I'll have to tell them that. And the other one you said was Columbus, which is
Mhm.
it's a great market. We invest a lot in Indianapolis, which is right next
Yeah,
to Columbus. Cool, love it. All right, next question is about lessons learned. Not every day deal we get into goes the way that we expect it. In fact, most of the time you're going to get kicked in the face a little bit, and a deal is going to go a little sideways. But that's when we learn our best lessons. So, what was a deal that went a little sideways for you, and then what was the lesson you pulled from it?
yeah. So my second multifamily transaction didn't end up closing. And that was one that we got into contract with the end of 2022. And right at the time when interest rates were starting to spike and capital was drying up. And so it really taught me when it comes to multifamily that lead with capital. I used to believe that if you found the money, if you found the deal, the money would come. It's not true. You need to find the money first. You
Hmm.
need to have the relationship. You need to have the money there right off the bat to be able to know this is why we're going to be able to fund this thing the way that we want it to.
Yeah.
So find the money and then pair it up with a good deal. But just because you have a great product doesn't mean that people are going to want to buy it, especially if they're getting hammered with headlines that say sky is falling down. And especially if it's, your newer group that hasn't gone through, such a massive shift that we saw that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why you should, the best time to start looking for investors is right now. Whatever time it is that you're listening to this, go out there, start talking to people. Uh, I don't want to plug podcasts too much, but it is a great way to find investors. And so if you have the inkling to talk to people on a podcast, I would highly suggest starting one because you get to talk to cool people like Donato, and people also reach out. They understand that what you do as a real estate investor, and they might want to invest in your project. So, little plug there.
Absolutely.
All right, that leads us to the very last question. This is for the listeners. You've given us a lot to think about. I'm sure people want to reach out, get in contact with you. This is a two-parter. Where can they find you, and then what can they expect when they reach out?
Yeah, so you can check out my website at www.donatocallahan.com. And through that, you can get in touch with me and we can talk about coaching. We can talk about just having a call, learn about what your goals are, and see if I can help you out. Just do that for free. I think it's a fun thing to do to help other folks kind of get in touch with more people, just like you said with the podcast. Then I'm on social media at Donato_Callahan. And if you want to learn about finding emerging markets, doing instant deal analysis, check us out at brightinvestor.com. And my email, I'll give it out, is donato@brightinvestor.com. So 4 different ways to get in contact with me. Love to talk with you about real estate, software business, and getting started or growing.
Sweet. I'll put that link in the show notes. So if y'all want to reach out, just click the little more in the description. It'll pull down that full description, and in there you can find Donato's link. All right, man. That wraps it up. Thank you very much for hopping on the show.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. For everybody who's here with us today, thank you guys for showing up. You are the reason we do this. So if you guys have any questions whatsoever, reach out to me, Gabe at therealestateinvestingclub.com. If you want to support the show, just give us a review on Apple or Spotify or whatever you're listening to this on. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great week. Keep rocking real estate, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.